Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Hello everyone, welcome to Leopardstown. It's that annual event, the Road to Cheltenham Let's Talk Racing Christmas Special. So of course I have on my right Ruby Walsh. Ruby, welcome.
Hello Lydia, how are you?
Very, very well indeed. Really looking forward to this. And also, as is now statutory, it's written down in the law. I'm joined by Josh Stacey, as we are every week, but also by Andrew Blair-White. Now, he is with us every week. You just don't know he is. He's at the controls. He's making us all work. But this time we've allowed him in front of camera. Andrew, how have you enjoyed the day so far?
Yeah, very, very good, Lydia. It's been fantastic to be part of the programme. I must say you're seriously inflating the amount of work I'm doing there, I must confess. But no, very much looking forward to running through a bit of the Christmas action, which has been super so far.
It has indeed. And Josh, I've seen you running around getting quotes, you know, talking to people behind the scenes. You're going to be sharing some of those pearls of wisdom, I assume?
Yeah, hopefully. It's been great to be here. Leopardstown's my favourite racecourse in the world. And yesterday we didn't get what we wanted with Galop under Champs winning. That was the dream, but it's still a brilliant day nonetheless.
In the world? Can we have some context
in the
for
world.
this?
Every racecourse I've ever visited, I'd come here.
OK.
Yeah.
OK, that was bigged it up. Bigged it up. What?
He hasn't been in many places.
No, I haven't.
That will change. That will change. Right, OK, so now, the sharp-eyed among you will notice that we're starting in the morning sunlight here. Sunlight, I exaggerate. In the morning here at Leopardstown. We will end this show after racing on the last day, so it'll be recorded in two parts, and I thought I'd confess it straight up because I'm not going to be able to get something past the roadies, am I? Right, we've got a really packed show for you. We're going to start with the chasers, end with the hurdlers, talk about the novices in between, so let's get on with it and talk about the established chasers first. OK, so we had some fantastic races over the Christmas period, and none better in terms of finishes than the King George VI Chase on Boxing Day. Just amazing. Steadily run, yes, Ruby, and that partly produced the finish, but four of them in the line, heading down the straight, and the Jukebox Man managing to get back up after the last.
Yeah, and look, I suppose it's the great, I don't know, is anomaly the right word, but how do you break a track record when you don't go quick? Some people are probably suggesting they had to have gone quick, but no, it just shows you that if you can finish really fast, how quick a time you can actually run overall. And
on that ground.
Yeah, and that's the way the King George was run. Ile France was steady. Like, it wasn't pedestrian, but it was steady for a King George. I mean, they think you'd have 8 runners and nobody was falling off the back of the shot, heading to the first fence in the back straight. Like, they think they were all still in it at the fourth last. You think of King George's in days gone by, and they're spread out all over Kempton as the pace or the tempo is usually so high, horses crack. Nobody cracked in this year's race because it wasn't high. 8 turned in with a chance, 4 came to the 4. It was a brilliant finish. It was a great finish, but I kind of felt watching it, it was like a game of poker, and everybody bluffed. It's tactics. Mm-hmm. But the Jukebox Man, Harry Redknapp, Ben Pauling, Ben Jones won the pot, and nobody showed their hand. Everybody kept bluffing. No one knows who was the best horse, but they won the race.
It's interesting, that, isn't it? Because I think everybody said, oh, fabulous race, amazing. But people have come out with lots of different opinions, Josh. And if we're thinking about the Irish Gold Cup, we're thinking particularly about the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Who are you thinking is standing best?
It's really difficult. I watched both races and nothing screamed to me that's going to be my Gold Cup winner. With the King George, I thought Gaelic Warrior was probably the one I'd want to take from it. I think he ran really well, considering he probably had a tough race in the John Dirk, and that may have left an effect on him. And I think if they'd gone quicker, stamina would have come to the play, and he would have been, for me, out of those 4, the one that would have been guaranteed stamina with what he did at Aintree last year. I thought the 3 horses that finished next to him were more speed horses, and therefore a slower pace probably suited them. I thought Banbridge being so close, he ran a great race, don't get me wrong, and he was entitled to run a good race on what he did in the race last year, but him being so close, a bit like Iron Maximus in the Savills, I'm not exactly sure how strong both of those bits of form are.
I suppose it's a function of the way that they both will run. I'm going to find out Ruby's opinion in a moment, but Andrew, I was frustrated by Gaelic Warrior. I felt he could have won that race.
Yeah, potentially so. I suppose when you saw what he did in the John Dirk and then you see the race unfold the way it was, You can obviously look at it in hindsight and think maybe they could have used a little bit more of them. But at the same time, those are things are very easy to say kind of after the race has come to pass. I still think turning into the straight, if he was quite good enough, he would have gotten there. I understand what Josh is coming with Banbridge being in the picture, and I suppose going into the race this year, I think everyone maybe wanted some of the protagonists to be better than last year's form. But you do look at how Banbridge runs Kempton, even when he won the Silvianaco Conti Chase. He runs that track so well. He runs well above himself there, with ground to suit. And Joseph O'Brien, as he's shown here at Leopardstown, has had a fantastic week.
He is incredible form, absolutely incredible form this week, Joseph O'Brien. And I agree with you. I think Kempton really suits him. I think the way the King George was run really suited him. But Gaelic Warrior, did Willie Mullins and Paul Townend have one eye on the Gold Cup and thinking about making sure that he didn't over-race for a second time, looking to go 3 mile, 2.5 furlong in March? I
wouldn't think they were looking at that, no. I think they were more looking at the 3 miles in Kempton and looking at it on paper. And look, I gave my opinion before the race as well, so I'm not going to change it now. I didn't see Ile-France going as slow as he went. I didn't think he would go that slow, and I thought, as so did Paul, Willie, David, everyone, like if you can get on his tail, he will tow you rather than you running away in front. But look, you can only have an opinion. It can be right or be wrong, but that's all it is. And the race didn't play out the way I think anybody expected it to, and therefore it didn't ultimately suit Gaelic Warrior. But I kind of think when you start riding 2 races in one, you usually get caught out, and you have to play the cards the way they fall. And I don't think it brought out the best in Gaelic Warrior, but that's horse racing.
It is. Right, we haven't spoken at length about the winner. We must. Josh, people see it 2 different ways, the Jukebox Man, being able to get back up with the other 2 coming either side of him and just get nosing ahead at one point. Did he outstay them, in your view, or did he use his pace to get back up in a steadily run race in the closing stages?
I felt personally with the way it was ran, he outsped them more than outstayed them. I think it was a combination of both, maybe leaning towards staying. He's a fascinating horse. They're now going to go straight to the Gold Cup. That looks an interesting thing to do. I spoke to Ben Pauling at the start of the season. He said that he'd be more of a Ryanair horse, even if he goes and wins a King George. Now, I think you probably get carried away and you go and win a King George and you go, well, I've got to run in the Gold Cup.
It's hard to back out at that point, isn't it?
It's so hard at that point. And I understand why, and I do the exact same thing. But it's fascinating. That extra 2 furlongs at Cheltenham, a stiffer finish. He's definitely a contender now. I'm not sure he should be quite as short as he is.
Albert Bartlett, I suppose. I mean, you know, at that age, he ran really well over 3.
He did, but he was beaten by Stella Story that day, who hasn't gone on to do much since, and he's an out-and-out stayer, so that would be a slight concern for me with the Cheltenham Hill.
OK. Andrew, what's your view?
I think he's a more mature horse than perhaps he was as a novice hurdler. Like, he kind of ran with the choke out in the Albert Bartlett, when you can... I think you can probably look back at that form and completely upgrade him. He was very much the best horse in the race and kind of just got mugged up the run-in. I was very impressed with how economical he's now become. I remember when he made his chasing debut at Newbury, like, he looked like an absolute tearaway. You wouldn't be able to get him back. And yet he kind of has gone around now in the Quarto Star last year and in the King George this year, looking like an awful lot more of a kind of finished model. And I suppose people had their doubts about Haydock, about what he beat, what he achieved there. But at the end of the day, he only had to kind of school around in front and won things very easily, and probably gave him that, you know, people were giving out at the time he should have been running in the Ascot race. But would he have had a hard race?
I don't think we were we?
No, we weren't, no.
But I think...
Other people might have been, but we weren't. We thought the way that autumn set up, it produced a brilliant King George, in our opinion.
Well, exactly. You know, has him running in a graduation chase, as much as there's been plenty of talk about these graduation chases, was that a better setup to go into a King George than potentially Factifile and Gaelic Warrior having a tougher race in the John Durkin? All opinion.
Well, he's the kind of horse that those graduation chases are actually for, as opposed to the 19 race, 21 race, etc., etc. Grand National fourths that are running around in them. What's your view?
I thought the Jukebox Man was the only one who got everything spot on down the straight. Django Boy got into the third last and got in a little bit to the second last. I thought the Jukebox Man jumping left at the second last inconvenienced Banbridge slightly, and Sean Bourne had to go at him. And then Paul Townend, while it was only momentarily, drops and recatches his whip. It's still momentum and balance. I thought the only one that absolutely nailed it down the straight was the Jukebox Man, and you're talking a lick of paint, and the width of a door.
I also thought that Ben Jones made it for him as well by making that move to be a bit more prominent. I think that probably made the difference down the straight. It meant that he was able to produce his A game over the fences, and the others were always slightly having to play catch up the whole time.
He was in position A.
Yeah.
And look, he
That's
was
a quicker way of saying it.
Yeah. You seem to think we have all day here. But he does go a bit left. So you could see off the bend, Paul Townend was so keen to get inside him,
Yeah.
and the others had to go outside him. But look, it looked more like the City of York than it did. When you look at the finish of it, they were coming at you rather than a King George. And I think that's the way I saw it and see it.
Okay. Factophile. What was up with Factophile?
Never rose a gallop.
Never going at any point, was he?
No.
And it was nothing. I mean, I've heard people suggest that it's the horses in front of him going less well, and he was kind of shuffled back. I felt he was never going. What do you think?
No, it does seem to happen, though, in the King George. Almost every year you get at least one horse that you go into the race thinking, Kempton will suit, he's a Ryanair winner, surely speed. And the way the race even worked out, that it was slowly run, it should have all convenienced him, and yet you were beaten first time past the stands.
He should have been free.
Yeah.
You look at him here last year, like trying to settle behind Gallop in the shop, early doors, even in the Ryanair. Like, he never, Mark Walsh, settle him. He was trying to get him going.
Did he have a hard race potentially in the John Durkin, and maybe Gaelic Warrior came out of it fine?
I don't think so. I think, like, if you said a hard race and they flattened out in the last half a mile, you'd say fine. But he should have gone through the first mile of the race. I would say never turned up.
And nothing's come to light?
I don't know why.
Nothing's come to light, no. Okay, all right, okay. King George, before we move on to the Savills Chase, the horse that you think is the likeliest Gold Cup winner from those 4 or 5 or more, Josh?
Gaelic Warrior.
Gaelic Warrior.
Given the overall form of William Mullen's horses, I would say Gaelic Warrior as well.
God, it's the full house Gaelic Warrior. I mean, he's quite a big price. At the time of speaking, I think he's about 10 to 1, and he'd shortened to that going into the King George. Interesting, right? Okay, let's talk about the Savills Chase now. And this saw the return of Galopin Des Champs, the belated return of Galopin Des Champs to his manor here at Leopardstown. And Josh, it was a superb performance for him for much of the race. If you were with Willie Mullen's camp, would you be satisfied with his third?
I got the impression they definitely were. When I spoke to them afterwards in the huddle, Willie said that not having that first run in the John Durkin definitely probably showed yesterday. He's always possibly stepped forward for that first run. He's electric round here. But even despite that, having such a possibly interrupted preparation, which has been well documented, he still ran a massive race and found himself in front, not so far from the finish. So I think he ran a massive race. I thought the signs were there quite early on. I never thought he was going that well. He's normally ridden extremely aggressively around here, and Paul was quite happy to sit off the lead quite early on in the contest as well, possibly thinking it's his first run back. He's going to come on for this, and we don't want to ruin the season on his first run. But I thought he ran a massive race, and we didn't get the moment that we wanted. We nearly did. I was in the stands, and the same people that were here last year were back here. They didn't want to miss anything special, and it got very exciting at one point. But he's ran a very, very, very good race, and it's a very credible run, even despite being beaten.
Yeah, very much so. I agree with your point. I think that he was ridden, Paul Townend rode him like a horse that was going to come on for his run. He wasn't wide as he would normally do, and seems to be favoured on the chase track here at Leopardstown. And I think maybe the opposition weren't quite as deferential to him either. The winner, Andrew, Affordale Fury, was the fittest horse in the race, by some measure, actually.
Yeah, he was. And I suppose when you look through the balance of his career, he's probably more unexposed than people gave him credit for. Like, I was shocked when he went past the line and it comes up on the big screen that he was 7 to 1. Clearly, people have kind of had a bit of a go at him there at double-figure prices. I didn't think he'd be that short. When you look at some of his back form, second in an Albert Bartlett, he was a talented novice before he got injured in the Florida Pearl. You feel it was always kind of potentially there for him to step up to this grade of horse, or grade of race, should I say. And when there was a little bit of question marks over the market leaders in this race, maybe that's why he became kind of that popular each-way option.
Yeah, I can see that. And he is only 7. And, you know, you mentioned that he missed in the second half of his Novice Chase season. I think that was crucial to him. And jumping had also held him back quite a bit. And on this occasion, Ruby, he jumped out to his right, but he was never seeming to lose much momentum with it.
No, he didn't. And you kind of wonder, well, you never like to see a horse pick up an injury. You often think, can they be as good again? Again, you wonder, has the injury, the hold-up, allowed him to develop and mature and come to ultimately fulfil his potential. 2 runs against Favre de Champs do as a novice chaser. Only 1 run last season where he was second to Saint Majest at Fairyhouse, and then runs into Western and Fold, who was the Galway Hurdle winner, a Galway Plate winner at Goran Park, Envoy Allen at Down Royal, beats Appreciated and Thurles. It was all building and going forward, and yesterday he was at his very best. And like, you have to take him seriously. He jumped to his right. He definitely inconvenienced himself at the second last fence, and again at the last, because the running red and Leopardstown runs back at you, or back away from the stands, if you know what I mean. Like, he allowed Galopin Des Champs back into the race twice, I thought, and still pulled away to beat him. I thought it was a really good performance from the winner, and I know if I was knowing me, they'd be thinking, I'm coming back here for the DRF and I have a Gold Cup horse, and he's entitled to think that way.
Can we talk about how I Am Maximus probably should have won this race?
I think in hindsight, given another go, Derek O'Connor might do things a little differently on him. I do think down to the third last fence, he got jumped it. Affordale Fury was going right, and he moseyed around to the second last. And then I Am Maximus, typical I Am Maximus, when he gets there, looks at the second last, and again at the last fence, when he wants to alter himself to the left, he jams on again. So I thought it was a huge run from him. Definitely a step in the right direction. And looking back on him and his form in the past, you'd have to imagine an extra couple of furlongs might really suit him.
Well, definitely. He surely, Andrew, earned a place in the Gold Cup this time around, hasn't he?
You'd think so. He's clearly shown throughout his career that he has those performances in him. Even in the Grand National last year, off the weight he was under was a fantastic run. So, you know, I understand what Josh was mentioning earlier about the fact that, you know, the proximity of I Am Maximus, Grange, Clare West in this race, what does that make of the form? But actually, when you look at some of I Am Maximus's kind of high-profile efforts, it's probably fair enough for him in the end of the day. And I think there's plenty of connections of those first couple of horses that will be very happy with how their horses have ran.
Unlike Josh, I know the way you're thinking, who, a bit like Fact to File, wasn't going right from the word go. I thought the first fence, he landed so flat-footed, and it didn't get any better, really.
It didn't. I thought the story was evident going out to the post when he was drifting markedly in the market.
Markedly.
He went off 13-2. I couldn't quite believe that when we saw the board afterwards and we saw Affordale Fury was 7-1. Thinking there was half point between both of those, considering one's a Gold Cup winner and one was having to step up massively, was quite shocking. Never really went at all, never in the race. I think it's difficult. We know, and it's well documented, that it's all about one day for I Know the Way You're Thinking. It's all about coming back for the Gold Cup. He improved with everyone last year, and then he was really, really good at Cheltenham. It's hard to watch a Gold Cup winner run like he has, and I'm not saying if that's manufactured or not, but it's difficult to really love a horse and really get behind a horse that's a Gold Cup winner or in any division when you're not exactly sure how they're going to be, and it's all about simply one day in March.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He was sort of steadily building all of last season, which you can understand in your second season. You know, first season in open company, I get that. But this was definitely a step back. And although the market seemed to know what was expected, Gavin Cromwell seemed to be pretty shocked and is going to have him tested. But it's difficult. I mean, that's a definitive knock to the horse.
Yeah, but last year it was building.
Exactly.
He progressed from the John Durkin to the Savills. You'd have to say he regressed. Or looked to me anyway. I mean, he never... I know the drift on him and all the rest, but he might have been 13-2 at the off. He was 1,000-1 as jumping 2 fences.
He didn't look as fit as the William Mullins horses, but then that's a normal statement to make, really.
Well, it's funny. Yesterday he was 13-2 at the off, and even after running so poorly, he's still 6-1 favourite for the Gold Cup as we speak.
Isn't that because people are confused? I feel.
Well, it's one of those, though, where it's very difficult to know whether, considering he's obviously shown kind of nondescript runs before Cheltenham before, and he's won twice at the festival. But then again, I'm not so sure almost whether Galopin Des Champs has kidded us into thinking that Gold Cup winners can just keep on coming back to the table, because you look even around a decade ago with the likes of Coney Gree, Don Cossack, Sizing John, they couldn't even get back to another Gold Cup, let alone the likes of Brave Man's Game, Jerry Colomb in recent years that have finished second in a Gold Cup, and it's almost been the end of their careers. So I'm not suggesting that will happen, because Gavin Cromwell, I'm sure, will be able to kind of find the key to him when it comes to March. But I think Galopin Des Champs' success in recent years has fooled us into thinking Gold Cup winners can do that all the time and come back.
Briefly, Fast or Slow, what did you make of him?
Very disappointing. Thought he travelled well. Thought he had a good position throughout the race, but I thought he folded quite tamely. I was disappointed with that.
I thought he got outpaced when the pace lifted from the second last, and then stepped on and went, oh, nobody else feels that. I think he's a thorough stayer. If asked the question, the answer is slow, not fast. Haiti Couleur, Andrew, what did you make of Haiti Couleur coming back in the Welsh National, bouncing back from the Betfair Chase?
Absolutely outstanding training performance by Rebecca Curtis to get this horse from kind of not travelling a yard at Haydock to winning the Welsh National. He's a fantastic horse when he's able to bowl along on the front end. I thought even going down to the last, I thought O'Connell, which I think Danny McMenamin gave a fantastic ride to, was looking sure to go and pick him up. And then I think he had another horse come to him and he found again. He ends up winning 3 lengths at the line. Looks like a perfect horse for the Grand National. I do believe, I understand people will say maybe a soft ground Gold Cup. Just don't think he has that class.
Right, there will be a more forensic look into kind of fence by fence, Ruby's analysed this stuff, on the January the 8th show. So this was sort of quick fire, shooting from the hip opinion show. And also on January the 8th, we'll be able to include the O'Driscoll's Irish Whiskey New Year's Day chase from Tramore. But that's it for the staying chases. Let's move on to the 2-milers. So now let's move on to the Paddy Rewards Club chase, the least likeably named of the key Grade 1 chases, I feel, over the Christmas period. Just my opinion. Let's talk about an eventful race. Solness won it again, back on his manor, Andrew, but a lot happened, particularly with Marine Nationale at the second.
Yeah, made an awful mistake.
He didn't make any mistake. Horse absolutely pinged the fence. Sean Flanagan expected him to make a mistake and ended up hanging off over the back of him. Horse never touched it.
Have you seen a different angle to the rest of us?
Yeah.
Go on, OK.
Couple of them. He just came out of his hands, flew the fence, caught Sean Flanagan unawares, and Sean Flanagan ended up slipping his reins and ended up back on him. And to keep himself on, he had to pull him up. Horse never touched it.
He was lucky that Only by Night and Keith Donoghue were there, wasn't he? Because without that, they'd have exited at fence 2. Anyway, that was still a setback to his chances in the race.
Well, Ruby would obviously know more about the mistake than I would. But look, when he's lost that amount of lengths of ground, like, you're almost thinking, is he going to pull up here? And the fact that he was able to get back into the race from
almost
where he was.
instantly, though. And presumably that was the pace that they were going, not that tough at that point.
Yeah, but he kind of managed to get back into it. He jumped well down the back. But Solness was always going well, and he's going with that little bit of gusto that he has here. Sometimes when you see him at other tracks, like especially when he's gone over to Cheltenham or Sandown in the past, he kind of never seems to pick up the bridle in front, and yet he runs away here. And I just came away from the race. The disappointment to me was Madgeborough. I just couldn't. I thought the race set up perfectly for him. Like Ruby's been mentioning about getting a lead. Mm-hmm. He didn't seemingly make any massive mistakes that we've become used to. And yet he just didn't really pick up. And I know he got slightly squeezed out on the run-in, which may have cost him a length or two, but I'd have thought if he was the horse you'd want him to be, he'd have got through that gap.
I just thought, again, when you watched the cameras, he looked somewhat clumsy. I think 5th last, 4th last. But I was in the stand, and when you watched it side on, he wasn't losing any ground. Watching it live compared to on television was showing 2 different races. I thought the same as Andrew. I thought he jumped perfectly. To me, he looked like he lacked the gear.
Too fizzy early.
Possibly, but you'd have still expected when he jumped the second last how well he was going to the jump. When he landed, he'd have had the gears to go with him to the bend. Yet he was the first horse that was struggling of those that were involved.
And the earplugs did come out, I take it. OK. And Willie Mullins said afterwards that maybe they'll need to tweak. They've tweaked some things this time round, and we've just discussed what those were. He might need to tweak something again. In your view, is that trip, or do you think Willie has something else in mind?
I don't know. I didn't get to talk to him about it. I don't know, what else can you tweak? Maybe a stronger gallop will suit him, but he just looked like he lacked a turn of foot the other day. And look, he is a Triumph Hurdle winner. Maybe he doesn't have that turn of foot.
You've made that point for a while. Josh, what was your take?
I've been wanting this horse to go up and trip for a long time. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but hopefully it might soon. When he was a juvenile and Willie was interviewed after the Triumph Hurdle, he said he could be a Gold Cup horse. And I think
that is his factory settings, though. Do bear that in mind.
It is. But because he's been...
I give you the other one. Everything's a 140.
Everything's a 140. And he's a Gold Cup horse. But I think he's got clearly so much ability, and that's meant that he's got away with it over 2. But I agree with Ruby and Andrew. I think that he was disappointing. I think up and trip, you would see the better of him. The issue is the owner and the trainer have got factor file.
Yes.
And he looks likely to be running in a Ryanair come March. So Will they run them both against each other? It's unlikely, especially when JP doesn't really have a Queen of the Champion Chase horse. I want him up and trip.
I can see that. I can hear the sort of voice of Frank Berry in my head saying, these things have a tendency to work their way out. It's a long time between now and the Cheltenham Festival. Stuff can happen, can't it? He might well end up in the right now. I'd be astonished if he didn't get an entry. He surely gets an entry. For me, Marine Nationale was the horse to take out of the race. Oh, obviously, he's Willie Mullins, and he'll be entered in everything. Sorry, that was a silly thing to say. Marine Nationale is the horse to take out the race, a bit later seasonal debut?
Absolutely. I thought he showed great. Look, even with the ground he lost, the defence away from here, being basically half pulled up and then having to go again, I thought it was a great performance from him, and I'd say Barry Connell was disappointed to lose but delighted to be going home with the horse he has.
Who's at the top of the 2 mile tree at the moment? Is it him? Is it Ilesi Tom? Josh?
I want him. I think Marie Nationale. I thought he was so good yesterday, considering he made the mistake early on in the contest, or not the mistake. I just think around Cheltenham, he acts there, and that's the big question mark with Ilete Thompson. Not saying that he can't. He's become more mature as he's gotten older, but Marine, and that for me is important.
Andrew?
Yeah, completely agree with everything Josh has just said there. You've got a horse that's won a Supreme and a Champion Chase against a horse that has struggled in his 3 starts at Cheltenham. And I know there's been plenty of water under the bridge since that last run in the Arkle, but it still has to be a nagging doubt until you actually see it on the track.
Maybe.
When you see how far back the interference put only by night, I think it tells you how big a race Marine Nationale ran.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be the one for me too.
Okay, and I have nothing to add. I think collectively you covered it. I think who do I think Intrinsic has the best form at the moment this season? Ilete Tom. Who do I think might be most suited by the Cheltenham task? Marine Nationale.
But this is completely discounting the possibility of Sir Gino coming back into it. It's unlikely.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
But he could be right there, couldn't he?
He could, and it's obvious. It's pretty obvious. We were
It's a comedy show.
Discussing him in full later on in the show. What would your joke be if it was?
So Gino in the Champion Chase?
You don't think it's going to happen at all?
No chance.
I don't either.
I don't think any of us do. Is intrinsically, does he say chaser or hurdler to you? To me, he says chaser.
Who's that?
Sir Gino, but he's going to end up running in the Champion
He's
Hurdle
had
this
one
season,
run
for
going there.
Understandable reasons.
Yeah, I think he'd have had one run going to the Champion Chase, so I just can't see him going there with one run, personally.
But if we're talking about who intrinsically is the most exciting and talented 2 mile chaser, I know exactly why you brought him at that
Who
point.
would go off favourite if he did run?
Who would you want in the Champion Hurdle?
That's Sir Gino.
Yeah, I know. It's a great position for Nicky Henderson to be in, isn't it? But at the same time, don't you, I mean, you must think that he's the way he goes about jumping.
You're asking the wrong person. I would be personally for running them in the race they can win.
Yes.
Are most likely to win. So that's exactly where I would be. Whether you think he's a better chaser or a better hurdler or X, Y, and Z, I would be, what race can they win? That's where I would be.
Well, this year, the answer to that question is the Champion Hurdle. Right, let's talk about Thistle Ask, shall we? The Skeltons have got a hugely progressive chaser. Josh, he ran in the Desert Orchid Grade 2. It's a limited handicap, but he ran right away from it from the outset. And yes, he's got to improve quite a bit, but he's now moving into graded company.
Incredible. He started the season off 115. He won the other day off 146. I don't think he's running against out-and-out champions at a Champion Chase quality, but he couldn't have beaten them any easier. He was so convincing. He suits Harry Skelton really well. Harry Skelton over the last few years has changed his riding style. He was quite aggressive on the front. He now drops a lot of them in and is very patient. Whether Thistle Ask is the perfect horse for the old Harry Skelton. He answered every question that Harry asked him. He was absolutely brilliant, and he won so well, and rightfully so. Dan Skelton's now going Clarence House. Let's take a gamble. We're not exactly sure who's going to run there. John Bond could go there, but he's definitely in the conversation, and he's a fascinating cog in the wheel, because we know if he turns up in the same form he did at Kempton that he'll be out in front and he'll make it a real test for all those behind, and a jumping test as well.
Thistle Ask?
Yeah, look, he was very, very impressive. Hard to really read much into it for me, considering I think the main market protagonist, Ryan's Rocket, obviously unseated down the back, which was a shame. He's beating Saint Segal, who's probably a 2.5 miler now, and a regressive Boot Hill, who's been a fantastic horse for Harry Fry, but he's not the horse he once was. So he's done a magnificent job of placing this horse, obviously, as Josh has alluded to improve from 115 up to, he'll now have a mark in the mid-150s. But it looked like a race that completely fell apart to me.
That, and I don't think he's likely definite to run in the Champion Chase.
No.
He's put himself in the conversation, but Dan Skelton afterwards said that they'd look at the Clarence House, that looks almost certain, but then they've got a big day at the end of the season. They might need him in a right-handed track on better ground in a celebration chase.
Yeah.
So I think that he might save him, especially given the fact that the yard have got Lourdes Sud, who seems definitely their first choice. It's hard to imagine Harry Skelton's going to get off Lourdes Sud to ride Ditalask.
I 100% agree, and they've laid him out for the Champion Chase. Any final thoughts on this section?
No.
No. OK. That's it, my lad. We move on to the Novice Chases. Now, we'll go into what's happened in the Novice Chasing division again in more detail on the 8th of January show. For this show, we've confined ourselves to picking out one horse whose performance we particularly liked or we thought created a lot of conversation or questions. So we're going to take one each, and we'll start with Josh. You went for the Quarto Star winner, Kitzbühel.
Yeah, not very imaginative, was it? I thought he was so good. Clearly, he won very, very easily. He was so bold. He was so brave. I don't think the form beating Thomas Moore 2 3/4 lengths is form good enough to win the Brown Advisory, but he did it relatively easily. I think Wendigo's a really admirable horse in third. I thought he didn't suit Kempton, and he would more suit a galloping track. I think he'd suit 3 miles at Cheltenham, definitely. He reminds me a bit of Many Clouds, maybe just a noseband. But I thought the winner was so good, and he was so workmanlike in his beginner's chase. He was completely different in the Quarto Star. And I know that Final Demand was impressive at Limerick, but I think the best performance we've seen in a Novice Chase this season was the one on Boxing Day in the Quarto Star.
Certainly in terms of stepping up and what he'd done before. Where do you expect to see him next?
Not too sure. I don't know. I suspect we'll see Final Demand back here at the Dublin Racing Festival. Whether he'll go there will be interesting. Willie did mention in the interview afterwards that you could step him down in trip, but what's the need when he's been so impressive at 3? I just felt that all the talk is about Final Demand. And I think Final Demand will have to be a very good horse in Kitzbühel. I'm not saying he can't, and I think he probably will, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as people are making out.
OK, we'll come back to him in passing, I think, when we talk about Final Demand, as we inevitably will. But first, we're going to talk about the big Westerner with Andrew.
Yeah, I just thought it was a really likeable effort. Henry de Bromhead's probably had a quiet enough December for his standards. You know, I think they're running to around 35% runners to form, and he's had 3 good winners over the Christmas period in herself, Cocktail Divan, and Los Blanco up and down Royal. I just loved the way she jumped. I thought she jumped an awful lot slicker than she did behind Jimmy Desoy in her first race in a beginner's chase at Fairy House. Obviously, Jay de Grugy came and probably showed, as we'd expect, Jay de Grugy had that little bit more pace, but then the big Westerner was able to kind of outstare from the back of the last fence. Obviously, the most likely option is that she's going to end up in the Mayor's Chase come the Cheltenham Festival. I would strongly love her to see her in the Brown Advisory. I think she's all stamina. Also, looking at Stephen's Day here, I'd be running July Flower in the Mayor's Chase because I don't think she's got the real requisite pace for 2 miles. So potentially, if Henry de Bromhead went down that road, I think she'd have a big chance of actually running a proper race in the Brown Advisory, getting £7 over 3 miles. Because I think the longer the trip, the more of a step in stamina it is, I think the better she'll be. And I don't think we've got anywhere near the bottom of her ability yet.
I totally agree with that. It seems like the arrival of the Mayor's Chase means that those more staying mares are heading that way rather than the Brown Advisory, whereas the Arkle is still pulling mares to it, and I agree, she's got a huge amount of stamina. I mentioned that Final Demand was going to get a mention. Ruby is going to mention him.
Yeah, and he didn't blow me away, but and I actually thought he jumps brilliantly, but I never was happy with how he was going in the race. But I love horses that, when they look to be having an off day, still win, and I think that's what he did. I thought both the second and third were too close to him down the hill, and for a moment I kind of thought, is Patrick in trouble? But he still managed to open up going to the second last. He was careful at the last, but I think he's a huge engine, and I think the best novice chase that'll be run this year will be here at the Dublin Racing Festival when Cocktail Divan, Romeo, Coolio, Final Demand and Kitzbühel go at it. Yeah,
we were talking about that 4-ball, weren't we? We'll come to that again in a moment, but I agree with you. Western Walk, 100 to 1, bit too close for comfort. Gold Dancer putting it up to a bit too close for comfort.
Romeo Coolio did the Gold Dancer at the Fairy House. But I just thought that I like horses that when they're off, still win.
Yeah. Yeah. OK, one of the horses that has already been mentioned is the one that I'm picking out, and that is Romeo Coolio, and the slightly perverse argument. Now, he was pushed out for the Arkle as a result of winning here at Leopardstown. I thought he did well to win. I thought he showed a different element of his character. He got outpaced, he was stuck in a bit of a pocket. Irish Panther, I thought, was well ridden and really put it to him, and actually found plenty from the last. And I thought he did really well to get down past him. Clearly, to me, though, he is a horse that wants 2.5 miles, will be a lot better at 2.5 miles, and that produces something of a problem these days with the... And I think Henry de Bromhead has got almost the opposite problem, really, with Cocktail de Ville as well, because this is a horse that's tried 3 miles and didn't seem to quite get it. They're hoping that quicker surface will enable him to do so. It seems to me perfect, the 2 mile 5 of the DRF, where we've got Kitzbühel, hopefully, we've got Final Demand, hopefully, Cocktail de Ville and Romeo Coolio. I think it's absolutely perfect for Romeo Coolio, that particular event.
That'll be a cracking contest, and I agree with Andrew. I think the big Westerner want every yard of 3 miles at Cheltenham. I couldn't see her winning at a shorter distance.
What would you all do with Cocktail de Ville and Romeo Coolio? You start, Josh.
Romeo Coolio is interesting. If it was mine, I probably wouldn't come here in the Dublin Racing Festival. I'd probably go to the Scilly Isles, which is what they did with Jerry Colomb.
They did.
I don't think there is a race at Cheltenham for him because he didn't look like a 2 miler here. We don't know over 3, possibly, but it's a big ask, especially against what seemingly is a very special horse in Final Demand. And then the 2.5 mile, he's going to have to lump a lot of weight around. So, I mean, I would personally go to the Scilly Isles, possibly to Fairyhouse after Cheltenham, and then possibly Aintree or Punchestown, and maybe try 3 at Punchestown.
Yeah, there's the manifesto at the start of April, isn't there, at Aintree, and the Willow Warm at 3/4 of the way through April. Andrew, what would you do?
I think you look at Gordon Elliott over the last few years, he does tend to follow the path of down Royal, Fairyhouse, Leopardstown, Christmas, and then straight to Cheltenham. So as much as I'd love to see him turn up here for the Flogas, I'd be surprised if he did, actually. I think given the owners, they seem absolutely mad set on going to Cheltenham. Whether that is the right thing, it's obviously up to them to decide. I think they'll end up running in the Arkle and hope that it's a strongly run race. Stayers can win the Arkle. You know, touch wood, he is a very good jumper. And when it comes to Cocktail de Ville, I thought he was absolutely excellent here. He jumped superbly. My worry is on the balance of his form. Every time he stepped up in grade, he hasn't quite been good enough. I know he looks possibly a much better novice chaser than he was a novice hurdler last year. I just thought in the Mersey at Aintree, he had every chance from 2 out, and he wasn't going anywhere at the line, and that slightly disappoints me. And then he was outstayed by Oscar's brother at Punchestown. You can make a case that 3 miles does stretch him, but I'd want to see him do it at proper graded level.
Yeah, I don't think... Maybe they weren't able to take him on, but nothing really took him on either when he was so dominant here. Your final thought?
With those two, I would probably go back to the Ark. Well, I'd come here with them, but I would go back to the Ark with both of them. If they're not quick enough, they're not quick enough. But I just think you won't get to the bottom of them, and both horses will progress for longer through their careers.
Yeah, whilst Romeo Coolio, people said, oh no, that's not the Arkle winner. In terms of the quality of the horse for the long term, that's why I chose him. I think he was really impressively showed different parts of his capabilities. Right, that's the Novice Chasers. Let's move on to the Novice Hurdlers. All right, same deal with the Novice Hurdlers. This time I'm going to start with Andrew, your Novice Hurdler that you've chosen.
The first race here on Stephen's Day, Ballyfad. I know El Kairos was probably the more high-profile Gordon Elliott novice from that day, and he showed a sparkling turn of foot. But I was really impressed by Ballyfad. In bumpers, I thought he looked like he was just getting away with it over 2 miles. He won by a half length up at Down Royal. He then won at Punchestown under a penalty, beating a Charles Burns horse who won the bumper at Limerick on the 28th. So there's a bit of substance to that form. I was just impressed by the gears he showed, because Jack Kennedy, I suppose, got it relatively easy on the front end, but he put away leader Dallier, who'd obviously won plenty of bumpers over in France, very, very impressively. And my worry with El Kairos in comparison to Ballyfad is I feel Ballyfad will now come back here for the Dublin Racing Festival in the Grade 1, which would be a better stepping stone for me onto Cheltenham, as for another horse who's possibly going to go down a maiden hurdle route and then have to go straight to Cheltenham. So perhaps there's just that little bit of we'll be able to know how good Ballyfad is. I do think in time he is going to need a trip. But he impressed me and surprised me with the gears he showed in comparison to what he showed in bumpers.
Yeah, capable of staying 2 miler. Yeah, I see that. El Kairos is the obvious place to go, seeing as that's your...
Yeah, and I would have stuck my hand up for Ballyfad, but Andrew was quicker out the blocks than me, and he grabbed him. I loved him off the bend as well, heading to the last hurdle, Ballyfad, and the same went for El Kairos. Wonderful turn of foot, unlucky to tip over. Probably 4 strides after the last hurdle, but look, I liked him in bumpers, and it was actually something Jamie Moore said to me that stuck in my head. We were standing in the ring before the Cheltenham bumper last year, and he said this is definitely the fastest jumper we've ever had if he stays, and I think stamina's no problem for him. I'd say he's a hell of a racer.
Yeah, the way he moved towards that last hurdle, there was something impressive about that, wasn't there?
And look, he was as obvious as the nose in your face to everybody.
Yeah, and went straight to the fore of the Supreme Novices hurdle market. He did everything he could to try and keep his feet as well. It was a really unfortunate fall. I'm going to move to mine because, again, it's thematically it moves on. I think mine, again, is an overreaction. I think my Daddy Paddy was an overreaction to getting defeated in the Form B. He's gone out to around about 12 to 1, something like that, I think, with most bookmakers. That race was never going to suit him. One, he was in positions, you talked about positions A earlier, he was in position Z early. And the way that the race panned out, they wanted to get him settled. They didn't want to let him over race early. And he was always trying to get into position and then not even having the hurdles to try and help him get into the race, you know, with the low sun and missing out the hurdles in the straight. I think everything was against him. And this is a horse that we know has got a large amount of ability. It's not ability you're wondering about. And now he's 12 to 1 for the Supreme. So whereas I don't think that I would be
What about
backing...
mentality?
Yeah, mentality is a potential. Absolutely, they're going to have to manage him, of course. But you know, there's been a series of Willie Mullins' horses, for example, that we've worried about in terms of mentality. Copec de Board, the last one. There's loads of them that head towards the Supreme, and they have to manage.
And what way are they ridden then when they get there?
More prominently, yeah. There's skill to obviously.
Can you
the skill
ride
to
my
it.
Daddy Paddy forward after dropping him right out 3 times now?
I think you're going to have to ride him a bit more differently, yeah. But you have to rely to some degree on the skill of the trainer to do that, don't you? You have. There is some skill there. You're completely right. But do you think 12 to 1 is covering that concern for you with a horse that you know has got that much ability?
12 to 1 wouldn't interest me anyway.
Right. Okay.
Are we slightly underestimating the winner of that race as well? Like, you were talking about positions. If we're talking about Z, like, if you go to the theatre and it's row ZZ, that's where Idaho Sun was in the champion bumper last year in a slowly run race. He was the eye catcher of the race. I think he came 5th to 6th in the end. He just seems an incredibly progressive horse. Like, and just by the line, he was turning away. If it was another furlong, he'd have won 7 or 8 lengths.
I agree. It's because I'm not underestimating Idaho Sun that I'm kind of making the argument for my Daddy Paddy. But I take your point. He is the more straightforward of the two. So the argument that you're both making, talent and straightforwardness, I think that's a potential stones to throw at him. I think that's fair. But I still think that 12 to 1 is a hell of a overreaction.
Won't it be great when we're watching the King George and they're bypassing all the fences?
Oh God. Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit more on January the 8th. I mean, you wouldn't expect it any other way, would you? What would you rather have? You know, a fenceless, hurdleless King George, or the King George we do have at Kempton?
Thoughts on a postcard?
Don't bother, you know the answer. Josh, bring some civility to this conversation.
I wasn't massively blown away by any novice hurdler
yes.
over the Christmas period. I thought that Talk the Talk was looking like he was going to be very impressive, but it came down. Al Kairos was going to be very impressive, but it came down. So I took a bit of a random steer, and I looked at the Supreme market and I saw Old Park Star at the top of it at 6 to 1. I think that's crazy. I think what he did at Cheltenham was good, but nowhere near should be 6 to 1. So I went for a juvenile hurdle.
Is this the first mention of a juvenile in this Road to Cheltenham series?
I'm not going to look at Ruby because I think he might be giving me daggers.
It's before the new year.
It is before the new year. But I was very impressed with Maestro Conti at Kempton on the 27th. He was all the talk going into it. They paid a lot of money for him privately because he's a half-brother to Live Conti, who was their best juvenile last year. And interestingly, after he won, which he did very stylishly, everything you could ever hope for on a British racecourse debut, Lisa Hale said that Harry told her he was about 2 weeks behind actually where he'd have been ready for his first run. So I think you can possibly upgrade that through a French horse called Bourbon Has. He's got very similar form with the best 3-mile French juvenile, which is a horse called Leopard de Burley, and they've got very similar form through those. So far this season, I've only seen 4 horses, possibly 4.5 horses that looked like they could win a Triumph Hurdle. I thought Narciso Has was very good here. Monge too, we haven't seen her since she beat Narciso Has. Maestro Conti, I think, is in that conversation. And then Minella Study and Bertucci, who won down in Limerick on the 26th, was also very decent. But I think that we could have all change in that division. I'm going to get in this before Ruby tells me to be quiet. But there's 3 horses that I'm particularly looking forward to running. Macho Man for the Donnellys and Willie. He won in Auteuil. Willie said that we'd like to see him in the new year. He could be a big player. Manlaga, who was meant to run at Chepstow for JP and Nikki Henderson. We will see her soon, hopefully. And then another one, Matan Midi Et Soir, was actually even money when Leopard de Burle beat him. And Leopard de Burle was 22-1 at Auteuil that day. They clearly think a lot of him. He's since changed hands privately, gone to Henry de Bromhead, owned by Rob Corr, and I think they think a lot of him.
You can feel it, can't you, emanating from
But Maestro Conti was very good.
I'm in the middle of this.
Just giving you 2 minutes and a load of horses we haven't even seen.
Right, we're moving on. IRL here at Leopardstown, we've got a day's racing to get through. Through the magic of television, when you rejoin us, we'll be talking about the hurdlers, and it'll be evening.
All right, lads, it's been a long day. Last thing, our ad slot for the road to Cheltenham. Patrick, I want you to look into that camera there and say, hi, I'm Patrick Mullins and he's Ruby Walsh. And if you enjoy his analysis on Road to Cheltenham, you might like Paddy Power's From the Horse's Mouth podcast, updated weekly and available wherever you get your podcasts. Very straightforward.
All right, sounds easy.
Ruby, all I want you to do is to look happy and smile. So, Patrick, if you give it a go in your own time, that'd be cool.
Hi, I'm Ruby Walsh, and that's Patrick Mullins.
No, okay, you can't even get your own name. Amateur jockey, amateur broadcaster. I don't know what that is. Forget about it.
Welcome back. We've got the hurdlers to talk about now, and you'll have spotted some differences on the screen. Get that felt tip pen and circle them. Your mum and dad will be really pleased if you do that. Right, let's start with the staying hurdlers, shall we, Ruby? We'll talk about Chupu, who we saw this Christmas, which was fantastic, and he was magnificent beating Bob Ollinger in the December hurdle.
Imagine what he could have done if he was fresh. Seeing as he's such a good horse fresh, but he was magnificent. I think the race set up really strong gallop. Rocky's Diamond rocked along, but he wanted to be on Chupu from so far out. From the time they crossed the road here, which is 7 furlongs from home, so make that after going 2 miles and 1, there was only going to be one winner from that far out, in my eyes anyway. I thought he was spectacular.
He was really good. I thought Bob Ollinger shaped really well also in second, bearing in mind for the Stayers hurdle.
He certainly did, yeah. They went an honest clip with Rocky's Diamond out in front, which probably would have suited Bob Ollinger to get that strong pace to aim at. But as Ruby alluded to there, Ballyburn was beaten a long way from home, certainly, by the looks of things. And, you know, people will say, oh, he didn't stay 3 miles, he was beaten well before. That would even really have come into my mind.
Was he in a mood? Because I was standing by the saddling boxes just here, Ruby, and he refused to go into the paddock twice. They had to drag Mystical Power back from the paddock to get him in, and he just looked like he was in a funk. But I hear he was like that at Ferryhouse too.
So David was saying, I hadn't saw him before. It was the first time I'd saw him in the saddling boxes, but I think he missed the first 2 times. It was definitely 4 times he'd refused to go in by that point when Mystical Power came back out. But and I'd agree with Andrew. To me, he was beaten before he got to just beyond 2 miles. He was beaten. So you can say it was stamina, but to me, he wouldn't have won at 2 miles. He wouldn't have beaten Chupu at 2 miles.
Has he gone in the head?
He didn't look a happy horse the other day anyway, and it's back to the drawing board with him.
What was your take, Josh?
Yeah, I think Chupu's now firmly at the top of the Stayers hurdle market. I was actually really impressed with him post-tour before Christmas. I spoke to Gordon Elliott today and asked him, was he slightly annoyed that he'd wrapped Chupu up in cotton wool for so long? And he was a bit slightly in agreement. I think he feels that they could have ran him more, but equally he might not have been the same horse as he is now, as if he'd had plenty of racing.
You'll never know that, really. The interesting thing that Jack Kennedy said was that he blames himself for the defeat in the Stayers hurdle to Bob Ollinger in March. What do you think that is? Going a little bit too soon? It's hypercritical, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think he went too soon because Rachel would have stayed behind him. I thought maybe drawing the stamina out of him from further, possibly. They didn't have the confidence to send him early enough. But Josh was impressed with him post-tour. I thought a horse stuck out like a sore thumb at Ascot. and it wasn't a winner. It was a third horse.
Now, it's interesting because I think we'll all be in different camps here, and I've got a foot in both, I'll be honest, so I'm the indecisive one. You like Impostoir. I think the both of you like Honesty Policy. Andrew, why do you like Honesty Policy from the long
Just
walk?
thought he shaped really, really well. You know, his first time out of a novice company. He was a progressive novice last year at 2.5 miles at Aintree, 3 miles at Punchestown, and I suppose he just got a little bit tap for toe turning in, but the way he hit the line, if there'd been another furlong there, you know, he'd have been right back at them. And I just wonder, in the Stayers herd, my only issue with Impostoir is he's a horse that doesn't do anything when he gets to the front. And that long draw from 2 out to the final hurdle on the old course at Cheltenham, I'm not sure whether that would slightly draw out the stamina of Impostoir, which would suit Honesty Policy.
Bob Wallinger's similar, though, isn't he? I mean, he needs to be delivered late, doesn't he? They're both going to be vying with each other to...
Yes, but this time last year, I don't think any of us would have believed Bob Wallinger would have stayed in the Stayers hurdle. So these things can happen, but I just think the stronger stayer would be Honesty Policy of the two.
Your response, Josh?
I'm not convinced that the Nicky Henderson team thought that Impostoir was a 3-miler at the start of the season, and he was ridden to stay in the Pertemps qualifier at Aintree, and then he was ridden to stay in better company at Newbury, and then I think Nico was slightly more confident on him at Ascot, and I think that the winning distance downplayed how good he was. I thought he was really good, and if they wanted more, they could have asked for more. I preferred him to Honesty Policy. Interesting to chatting to Gordon today. Honesty Policy goes straight there. So only the one run before Cheltenham, that would be a bit of a concern possibly.
For 3 miles, maybe, stepping out of novice company. Your two, Penneth?
I thought he was fresh at Ascot. I thought he over-raced. I thought Impostoir settled beautifully. I thought Sean Bone gave Strong Leader a very good ride. He changed up a bit from Newbury, committed him a lot earlier to make it a test. And I thought Honesty Policy just over-raced a little bit from freshness more than anything else through the first mile and a quarter of the race. I thought he took a blow turning in, got his second win, started the power home. And I thought against two horses who both had 2 starts and he had none, I think he could be a potential Gold Cup horse down the road, Honesty Policy.
Could well be. He comes from a pointing background, doesn't he? So Impostoir for you?
I'd probably just go Impostoir.
I think Gordon Elliott would be very happy with where he is at the moment between Tupo and Honesty Policy, to be honest.
I agree with Andrew. I think Gordon holds the aces.
And talking about Gordon Elliott being very happy, what a 4 days he has had. The Trainers' Championship looks like it might be much more of a fight this time around. Obviously, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, but nonetheless, they must be feeling that camp really positive after these 4 days.
They'd be absolutely thrilled with the Christmas they've had, but I don't think you can think about an Irish Trainers' Championship till you're the other side of the DRF.
It's a meeting that Gordon has kind of backed off in recent years, so you think he won't do that this time around?
Well, there's too much money there. If you want to be champion trainer, you can't back off the DRF. You know, Gordon's had a wonderful Christmas, but he can't just let William Mullins win a couple of million at the DRF and expect to be champion trainer.
It's making for a great DRF. Watu, she continued her almost bar Lossiemouth unbeaten run. Again, she looked in trouble. Again, she pulled it out today.
Yeah, she just doesn't seem to do a whole pile throughout her race. I'm not sure I'd be interested in Ruby's view. I didn't think Jack Kennedy looked too happy for an awful long way down the back. Feet of a Dancer tried to make it into a bit of a test. Obviously, she's stayed 3 miles in the Pertemps. She's a decent mare, but she's rated 139. You'd want to go and pick her up. And she did in the end, but it's always with that slight feeling of hard work and certainly not a feeling that you'd want to be stepping down in trip. In fact,
God, no.
if anything, you'd want to be going up to 3 miles with her.
I thought if you took 8 to 15, you were probably a bit nervous across to the second last. But I'd agree with Andrew. She never... I think she definitely travelled better at Ascot. She travelled better in the Martin Pipe. I've seen her travel better, but she did what good horses do, and that's still win when they slightly look below maybe what they can be.
Yeah, I felt confident throughout at Ascot today. I did not in the Kerry Mount, not so much. She is favourite for the mare's hurdle, but that does rather depend on what happens with Lossiemouth, which takes us neatly on to the champion hurdle division. We today have had the December hurdle here. It was won by Lossiemouth, Josh. Brighter Days Ahead pushed her all the way to the line, and the race was blown apart by Amsterdam surging to the front 4 out.
Yeah, it was fascinating. He's clearly a horse, Amsterdam, with a lot of ability, but not sure he knows exactly how to race at the moment. I was shocked with with him taking Patrick to the front and how exuberant he was in the mid part of the race. But I thought Lossiemouth was very good. I thought she did everything I half expected her to do today. The one horse I didn't expect to run as well was Brighter Days Ahead. I don't know why. I felt that there was possibly expectation that she would come on for the run no matter what happened today, and she was right at the backside of Lossiemouth towards the finish, so that'd be fascinating to see if they run against each other at the Dublin Racing Festival. But I think Lossiemouth is now the best 2-mile hurdler in Ireland, and I think she should go to the champion hurdle. I'd be really disappointed if she turns up against Woodhoo in the mare's hurdle. We've seen her in that race the last 2 years. We know she's good enough for that. And yes, it's a fantastic race to win, but the last few champion hurdles have proven that those at the top of the market can be vulnerable, and as a result, I think you've got to take your chance. She's the leading contender over here. I'd love to see it with her and Sir Gino.
A bit like last year. I mean, obviously she was defeated at Kempton. Everyone out there expecting Lossiemouth to run. Willie Mullins, you tell me, still not drawn. Asked about it point blank on RTE today about whether it was the champion for Lossiemouth after winning the December hurdle. He still wouldn't say.
He said he was making no comment.
And what do you take from that?
It means he won't be pushed into a decision, and he will see what happens back here at the DRF. And if Brighter Days Ahead improves and goes and beats Lossiemouth at the DRF, she'll be heading back to the mare's hurdle. Or if she blows the Brighter Days Ahead away here at the DRF, she may well run the champion hurdle. But he's not committing, because when you commit, you have to do a U-turn. When you don't commit, you've never made the decision.
Yeah, but this time last year, it became, as the season progressed, it became clearer to, I think, the outside that Cheltenham don't really see her as a champion hurdler. But now events mean that she looks like she is a champion hurdler, all bar Sir Gino.
And that's a big bar.
It is a big bar.
Yeah, look, I would be in agreement with Josh. When you've got a horse coming here and, you know, she's won the Morgiana hurdle, she's now come and won the December hurdle, you know, this is the pathway of horses that go to a champion hurdle. I can also understand why they aren't committing at the moment, but when it looks like, there doesn't look like there's any other horse in the yard that's going to take them to the champion hurdle or take them to a horse that might win the champion hurdle, I don't know, it doesn't feel like Willie Mullins would leave the champion hurdle completely empty.
What does he win the mare's hurdle with?
I think he's gone chasing. Cargi, CJ de Grugy.
So he's no runner in the mare's hurdle, and he runs one that gets beaten in the champion hurdle, and you're standing there with no winner. Is that a good way to run a business?
No. All the hints are there all over again, really. I mean, how would you rate this performance this time around? Inside line of this track, so more of a speed test than perhaps would be ideal for her. Lively ground as well, and how did you read what happened 4 out? Whether that helped her or
ran away, and that then helped because Paul followed. So if you think of Brighter Days Ahead without the run, was then asked to race from the third last hurdle. They upped it a long way out. Paul went after Patrick, and it didn't quicken up. They lengthened that far out, and it became a real test. And the two of them stayed really well, the first two. Cashildale Lad came back at Amsterdam, but I thought they upped it a long way from home, and they were going at it early.
Without Amsterdam, when do you think Paul Townend would have taken it up?
No, I don't know. Going to the second last, probably.
Because given the analysis there suggests that he'd have been intent on making a test, drawing out the fitness.
Well, I think where he lined up suggests that he was going to ride for fitness. He didn't line up to follow Brighter Days Ahead to do it for speed. He lined up and went ahead of her to go for fitness and stamina.
Okay.
That's how I read it now, but that's only, I didn't ask Paul. He walked by there a few minutes ago. We should have stopped him, but I didn't ask him, but that's what it looked like to me.
Well, you'll have time to do that ahead of the January the 8th show. This is shooting from the hip time. So, champion hurdle. Thinking about the Christmas hurdle, we mentioned Sir Gino earlier. Everybody's saying what a fan they were of him, that he has to go to the champion hurdle now. In your mind, is he the champion hurdle winner?
Yes, I think he is. I think it was just the performance of the season at over 2 miles, and I was impressed, but clearly listening to what Camp Willie Mullins think, they were the most impressed people going, because as a result, I think it would have been natural for Lossiemouth to have gone on to the champion hurdle from today, but Sir Gino's that good of a horse that he's definitely one that, not that you want to avoid, but he's just so good that it's going to be a massive, massive ask for any horse.
Any weakness in him at all, that he jumps a hurdle a bit like a chaser sometimes?
I suppose he could get a little bit slicker over his hurdles, yes, but first time out, you'd be prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt for that. He was also fizzy. I like the way he hit the line, considering he was keen. And then Golden Ace, who ran a very, very good race in her own right, gives it a fair barometer of where the form is. So you can understand why he's top of the market. You can understand why people think he's the winner. Wouldn't be running scared of him just yet, though.
He jumped better when he was given the office, but Nicky Henderson said afterwards, given he's got so much speed, you wouldn't necessarily want to do that, as in go on that far out.
Doesn't look like he lacks stamina either, though, does it? Looking at him in the past, I thought he was a bit clumsy at the third or fourth hurdle, one of the two hurdles past the stands, and when he was going a mile an hour faster, when he was long and attacking the hurdles, he jumped much better. Yeah, Andrew's right, a little bit high if you're being super critical of him, but he gets up and gets out, and nothing to dislike about him. You'll also have the new Lion running in the Bula at the end of January, and he'll put a different shape on the champion hurdle picture as well. But look, I'm not speaking for Willie Mullins. Willie Mullins will run Lossiemouth where he thinks she can win. He doesn't believe in participating.
Okay, so Gino, not scared of Gino, not just yet, and you still think Gino's top of this division?
I thought Gino was the most impressive, yeah.
Okay. In a division that has been dramatic, we should just add that William Money as well now looks very unlikely not only to make the DRF but not the Cheltenham Festival either. We might see him for Punchestown, so that is a shame. Right, as I mentioned, there will be a full forensic view of everything that has gone on in the Christmas period, also the New Year period. The Relkill will be included in our January the 8th show. But this is the end of our Christmas show, so it remains for me to say thank you to Josh, thank you to Andrew, thank you to Ruby, and thank you all for watching. A very happy New Year to you and your family.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.